Hey everybody, the Sam and Cole podcast presented by Black Creek Outfitters. Stop by and see Joe Butler, anybody there on the staff at Black Creek, right there in the town center. They were there before the town center was built. And Cole, I think I've told you the story before, that when you draw an X actually where the center of town is, that's why that place is called Town Center, because that's actually where the center of town is when you look at it. And Joe Butler, when he moved from over there on the west side. They were over there. They were had skateboards and did a bunch of stuff. And then he moved and built that facility there, Black Creek. They've got everything: Arc'teryx, Patagonia, Ex Officio, all the things that you need. Stop by and see them, and they're continue to be our presenting sponsor of the Sam and Cole podcast. Cole, the rookie mini camp is about the most ho-hum. Nothing has ever happened. There are 27 camp guys, 17 undrafted free agents, and 9 guys who were drafted. And over the years, nothing has ever happened at that, ever.
Yeah.
And yet, 6,000 people show up on Saturday. Over 2,500 show up on Friday. There's a buzz. There's something going on, and we've talked about that now for a couple of months.
Yeah, I'm still trying to put my finger on exactly why this happened at this time, because I don't think it's just the Blake Bortles effect, and I don't think it's just this draft, and I don't think it's just the fact that Blaine Gabbert isn't here anymore, or that I think there's a lot that has gone into this stew at the right time that has created a level of excitement, and I want to get your interpretation of this. A couple of the things that I think are big in this. Number one, I think that Jaguars fans, in particular the Bold City Brigade age group, which by and large are 20s and early 30s, I think they have had enough of being told by the national media that nobody likes the Jaguars. They're very active on social media. A bunch of them went up to the draft, and this has kind of become their thing. They've embraced this. This is Generation Jaguar, for lack of a better term. And so there's that. There's the hope, and the hope of winning sells tickets better than winning does most times.
Mm-hmm.
And I think for the first time in a long time, for whatever reason, and you could say, well, they won 4 of their last 8 at the end of the year after an 0-8 start. I think that's maybe part of it. But I think that that between Dave Caldwell and Shad Khan and Gus Bradley, I think the fan base has honest-to-goodness optimism and hope. And that was manifest, I think, by those big crowds. But there's even more to it than that, and I'm not sure what it is. I turned around on Friday, saw 2,500, and I thought, don't you people have jobs?
Right.
Right. And then on Saturday, I guess the people that had jobs decided to show up with the 6,000 plus, which is more than training camp practices usually get.
The weather was great.
It's fantastic weather, no doubt.
That was, and I'm not downplaying anything that you said, but you got to put the weather in it. It wasn't too hot, wasn't cold, sun was out. Perfect weekend when it comes to, there wasn't something on television. It wasn't Masters weekend. It wasn't Players weekend. It was the perfect storm in that situation. So put those kind of things together, and you can imagine the crowd going up. But 6,000 people showing up on Saturday. Some of it has to do with what you were talking about, and that is that there is a group of people who now who take ownership in the Jaguars. That's their team. I don't know if it has something to do with Florida not really being competitive in the last year, but this group, this is their thing, as you said, and they have ownership in that, and they've created their own kind of monikers, and social media has a massive role in this because they all kind of tweet for each other, to each other, and certainly some of the other Jaguars media also engage in that. They tweet for this particular group that is that considers themselves kind of having ownership in that, and that's part of it. The other thing is, and I think actually that might be the overriding thought for some people, but that's not all the people that came out.
Right.
That might have been 100 people. Maybe 150. The ones that were out there, the 6,000 were out there, are those who have paid attention to what Shad Khan has said, who would like to play for Gus Bradley themselves, who appreciate the drafting that Dave Caldwell is doing exactly as you described it. If you don't know the names of the players, you know the schools. You know how competitive they are. Somewhere in the back of your mind, you've heard of Marquise Lee. Somewhere in the back of your mind, you've heard of, didn't the Penn State wide receiver win that Big Ten award? You've heard of some of these guys. Bortles is going to be a rock star probably, and that's great. But it's much more of a large segment of fans buying into Gus Bradley's kind of what I've always called pool leadership. Like, let's all go together. He's pulling everybody with him. And, Mel Tucker, same kind of leader, just very less demonstrative about it. But it is that servant leadership has really emerged as the thing that energizes not only teams but fan bases as well. Because if you're there on Saturday, if you were there on Saturday, Gus Bradley thinks you're a part of it. You are a part of it, and that's very different than any coach and any situation that's been here in the 20 years the Jaguars have been in existence.
Absolutely. I was on an interview in Seattle before the draft, and obviously Gus
these were the guys who couldn't understand why we weren't taking Johnny Manziel, right?
Right. Yeah, but we were talking about Gus, and they had the same thing. Not only is he very positive and energetic, he's also authentic.
Mm-hmm.
He is authentically positive and energetic, and it's not always. I mean, there are guys who will put on a show for you, and we've seen them, coaches, players, a lot of different, college, pro, football, other sports. He's not a guy who's putting on a show. That's just the way he is. I mean, you can't fake it for that long in every scenario. So I believe it's authentic, and I think the fans believe it's authentic, and it connects with them. Now the other thing here,
he believes it.
Yeah, and
he lives it.
It's second nature to him at this point to be that way. So whether I'd love to have a conversation. I may have a conversation with Gus about whether at some point he recognized that this was effective, or in other words, is he naturally this way, or did he stumble across this and realize, boy, this really works, and he became this way? And because if you act a certain way enough days in a row, it becomes second nature to you. I mean, we're all wired a little bit differently, based on being more cynical or more optimistic or what have you. But if you fake it, it's fake it till you make it kind of thing. If you fake it long enough, you can change your attitude. People's attitudes and sort of approaches to life can change. And I wonder if Gus at some point realized, hey, when I'm this way, people respond in a certain way, and I like that. And probably at a very young age.
Right, and I think that it's more I think this is just who he is.
Yeah.
It's just who he is. He believes in this stuff. He tries to live his life that way, and I so appreciate somebody who, my big complaint, and I think we've talked about this in the past a couple of times with both Coughlin and with Del Rio. And I had the discussion with both of them that they allow people to compete in all phases of their lives, whether it's their family, their players, their kids, whatever, their coaching staff. But they all took the media as a single block and discarded us all into a basket as, unworthy somewhat. Whereas Gus has allowed us to compete. He can see who's competing. And he understands the different parts of the job that we have, but he responds to people who are doing a good job, whether they're football players or whether they're writers or whether they're broadcasters. If he's the kind of guy who can see that you are competing, you are trying to do a better job than the next guy, and I think he appreciates that, and that makes me respond to that better. You know, I mean, I certainly respond to that better.
And people, by and large, have really responded to Gus Bradley, and it took a while for people. You know, we are so used to looking at the record and saying, well, if the guy's got a winning record, he's a good coach. If he's got a losing record, he's a bad coach. But I think people saw what Gus did last year, and they've really grabbed onto that. But it's going to be very interesting because I keep getting the same question around town over the last 2 weeks. Hey, what do you think of the draft? What do you think of the draft?
Of course, yeah.
You know, and people are still waiting to, you know, they want to know what did I think of it, and they have their own opinions. And again, we're truly not going to know about this draft probably until next year.
Except,
you know, I mean, it is such a next year draft because no matter how good.
I have said that you can draft that way when you've convinced your owner you're not going to win this year. It's the only way you can draft that way.
Or when winning this year, when you might win, but it's not essential to only win this year.
Right. Right.
And so, you know, Marquise Lee and Allen Robinson and Telvin Smith and Chris Smith and on, Storm Johnson, they may all be terrific. But if the quarterback's a bust, it's a bad draft. And everybody else may be a bust, but if the quarterback's a superstar, it's a great draft. I mean, you know, the Colts 1998 draft was a great draft. Why? Peyton Manning.
Number one pick.
Yeah. The Patriots had a great draft once upon a time when they picked the guy on the final day of the draft who turned out to be Tom Brady. So do we know that, you know, you go and look up who the rest of the draft picks were, but it doesn't matter because even if everybody else was, you know, were just absolute tank jobs, you get your quarterback, it's a great draft. So what's going to be interesting to me, Sam, now is to see how this energy from the rookie camp rolls over to anything else, how much it impacts going forward.
I think a lot of people are going to continue to come out to practice to feel like they want to be a part of this because they can feel that they're going to move forward. The Jaguars are. By the way, Vegas came out with their over-under odds, and the Jaguars are the longest odds to win the Super Bowl this year, and they're also the team with the least opportunity to win games. Jaguars over-under to if you were going to set the over-under in wins, what would it be?
For the Jaguars?
Yeah.
Or what do I think it's actually going to be, or what do I think the line should be nationally?
If you personally, knowing what you know, we're going to set the number, what would it be?
I'd put it at 5.5.
Okay, the Jaguars are the longest, and they're at 4.5. Their number is 4.5.
I think nationally that doesn't really surprise me.
Right, nationally, exactly. Yeah. Which is why we will be able to steal money by betting the over, because they're going to win more than 4 games. And my son lives in Vegas, where betting is legal, and we will call him up and have him bet some money for us.
There we go.
But yeah, Jaguars 4.5, Browns 6.5.
Browns 6.5. Again,
yeah, 6.5.
Again,
right?
Because
this is all just
our gauge of public perception.
Exactly.
The betting public, they must really like Johnny Football, huh? Or maybe they really like Brian Hoyer, and we just don't know
it. Who's the starter according to the owner? Cardinals 7.5, Giants 7.5, Texans 7.5. Texans, who by the way won 2 games last year. Dolphins 8, Cowboys 8, Chiefs 8, Panthers 8, Falcons 8.
Wow, Panthers 8 seems low.
I know. Cincinnati 9, Colts 9.5, Patriots 10.5, Niners 10.5, Denver and Seattle 11.
Yeah, I think that order seems about. Where was Pittsburgh?
Let's see. Pittsburgh Steelers 8.5.
Yeah, and I think I take the under on Pittsburgh, but I know why they're 8.5 because Steeler fans bet on Steelers.
Right, exactly. So the most surprising are when you look at their records from 2013 The Packers are 10, and the Packers last year went 8-7-1. The Ravens and the Steelers are 8.5, and both of them went 8-8. The Lions are 8 and went 7-9 last year. The Falcons are 8 and went 4-12, and the Texans, of course, are 7.5 and went 2-14.
And both the Texans and the Falcons had years that people would consider to be anomaly years.
An aberration.
Yeah,
exactly.
Particularly with the Falcons, because people think Matt Ryan's pretty good. I mean, I think he's pretty good. I don't know if he's great, but he's pretty good. When you have a pretty good quarterback, you should do better than 4 wins.
Right. The Sam and Cole podcast is brought to you and presented by Black Creek Outfitters, right there at the town center. If you pull into Town Center on Town Center Drive, it's right there to the left. It's behind Bono's. And, Cole, I was in there the other day trying on some shoes. I may go visit my daughter in California, and they do a lot of hiking out there. And I looked at a lot of shoes that Joe has. He has some specialty shoes, but really some stuff that is built like an athletic shoe, but is actually a hiking shoe. And
I need some of those.
And I was very surprised at the selection and how they fit, and that they're very much specific to what you want to do. But you could easily wear these around with a pair of jeans and not feel like you're wearing, ski boots.
Well, if that's the case, I may be in there within the week because I need
so, he's got great stuff. Stop in and see Joe Butler, the presenting sponsor of the Sam and Cole podcast. All right, I'm going to go do the news.
All right, sounds good. Check out Sam on Twitter at Sam Kavaris. Check me out on Twitter at Cole Pemper. And we appreciate you joining us, and we'll join you next time right here on the Sam and Cole podcast.